So you just got your first big product management job offer.
Mom, I got it, yeah. Yeah, I signed it. We're good. We're gonna start in 2 weeks, yeah.
And now you're starting to realize you don't even know what your job is about.
Well, no, it's not a project manager, it's product manager.
Product manager, project manager, what's going on here?
Project managers manage projects, and then product managers, no, I'm not developing though, that's what the developers do.
You're a fraud, a phony, an imposter.
No, that's marketing.
And they're gonna find that out on day one, the first week you get there. Goodbye probationary period. Good times never last, my friend.
Yeah, I signed it. What are you talking? Why would you even ask that? Why would you ask that?
Don't worry, that feeling is totally normal. I've been in product management for over a decade and I've seen it all, and I've worked in all kinds of industries. From organ transplant software, where literally one bad decision can cost someone their life, to building and shipping my own app which got used by teams all across the world, to then becoming the head of product at a VC-funded startup. By the end of this video, you will know exactly who to meet, what to focus on, and what really matters as a product manager to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Let's get started. You're probably on ChatGPT or on Google and you're trying to learn all about what to expect. You're hearing about sprints and Scrum and maybe velocity and story points and all these kinds of things. And to be honest with you, it is a lot to take in. But you're not really sprinting every day. You're not trying to burn yourself out. And that's part of the job as a product manager, constantly just moving forward. Okay, are we looking at ticket 74? 74? I think you're on mute. Now you'll probably be planning your entire work around what's called sprints. And more often than not, you're actually expected to run these sprints or facilitate them. Now there might be a Scrum Master at your job, and if there is, you're very lucky. Nowadays I find fewer and fewer Scrum Masters actually exist, and it's more on the product manager to take on that role during these meetings. Now most development teams will usually run on a 2-week sprint cycle. Maybe 3 weeks, maybe more, maybe less, it does not matter. Do not get too hung up on the actual time of the sprints. It's just like cooking. Adjust your seasoning accordingly and you're gonna be fine. Now every new sprint will start with what's called a sprint planning meeting, and this one's usually pretty long. It's at least an hour long, maybe an hour and a half. And the goal of every sprint planning meeting is very simple. It's what can your team, your development team, actually commit to completing within the next sprint. Now when I say completed here, I mean fully built out. That means developed, QA'd, and tested by yourself as a product manager. This might be called UAT in some places, which means user acceptance testing. Other times it's just called demoed. Whatever it is called, it just basically just means taking the work out for a test drive, and it's up to you as a good product manager to make sure that you do that. And this is your first time as a product manager and it's your first sprint planning meeting, you're probably gonna be looking at what's called a sprint backlog. It'll be a bunch of work items that are all gonna be in a list, and you're gonna see a bunch of numbers beside them. Now these little numbers are, as you might have guessed it, called story points, and you may have actually already done your own research and discovered this yourself. So I'm not gonna get too much into the weeds here, but I do wanna cover them very quickly. You can imagine story points basically as the relative cost of doing each work item. So pretend every work item is essentially a new feature that you have to pay for, and you're actually paying for it with these story points. Now work items with lower story points means lower work effort, and therefore an easier or less complicated task to do. A work item with a higher story point means more complicated, a bigger task, more complex, and therefore it takes more time and effort to complete. But now that you know everything comes at a price, how do you know what you can actually fit into a sprint? This is where velocity comes into play. Velocity is basically your budget. Now more accurately, velocity is the amount of work items in story points that your team was actually able to complete in the last sprint. That means if in the last sprint your team committed to, let's say, 100 story points worth of work, but they only completed, let's say, 88 story points worth of work, that means your current velocity is 88, and your budget should be around 88. You should only be planning for approximately 88 story points worth of work for your current sprint, because you know that's how much your team can actually get through. So that's all velocity really means. It means your current working budget for the sprint that's gonna happen right now. Don't overcomplicate it, that's all it means. Okay, so what do you actually want to put in the sprint? That's your job as a product manager. Now, as much as a sprint should be a self-contained, time-boxed amount of work, realistically, usually there is some spillover from the last sprint. So this is the first thing you actually want to look at. Check the last sprint and see what items have not been completed, and put them in your current sprint to start with. So just ask your team if there's any items that have not been completed in the last sprint, You can even dig into the why if you want, but otherwise, the whole point is not to try and point fingers here. It's just to put them in the current sprint to make sure you clear your plate. You want to be known as a product manager who actually gets things done. It'll build goodwill with your company and also your developers to make sure that you actually want to finish things no matter how long it takes. Okay, so finally, it's time to get to the new work item. Remember, it's your very first sprint, so again, do not overthink this. You don't know everything, don't pretend to know anything. Honestly, most likely you're already gonna have a backlog that has some work items in some sort of priority. So just ask your hiring manager, ask your boss, ask your colleagues, what is the current priority, and just focus on that for now. Just in this first sprint planning meeting, you just wanna be the person that works with logistics. You don't wanna be the person who's actually putting in too much thought right now. Right now, you're essentially executing on someone else's vision, but we're gonna get to your vision very quickly. So your best bet right now is really to just go through each work item with the development team, read the items out loud, and try to get an understanding of them for your own knowledge, more so for the developers right now. You wanna try to onboard yourself in practice while things are happening. It's the fastest way to kind of jump in and get your feet wet. Now, ideally, even though it is your first sprint, you still wanna have some sort of sprint goal for your team. Now, it's a fancy term, you probably read about it before, sprint theme, sprint goal. You're wondering what exactly is that? Do not overcomplicate it. The way that I look at sprint goals is basically, how can I motivate the development team? That's it, don't overthink it. Now, usually you can kind of like thematically put your sprint goal into two different categories. One could be customer input, feedback, or motivations, which is probably the best way to do it. Or it can just be a way to kind of motivate your developers on a more technical side of things. So if it's a customer way of doing it, if you have customer quotes or an understanding of what the actual use case is that you're trying to solve for the customer, and we'll get to use cases in a second, that is the best way to do it. But otherwise, you might want to try and figure out in the actual work items, is there any sort of technical aspect that the developers would get interested in, and then you can kind of highlight and surface for your developers so they can actually get more motivated for their work. Now, one more really important thing here, when you are doing the sprint planning meeting, make sure to always share your screen. It's a very small thing, it sounds like a silly thing to even bring up, but I promise you there will be some people on the development team that will not be fully in sync with what you're trying to say. They may be misinterpreting a work item or not understanding the same ticket you're working on. So share your screen, walk through the items as a group, and make sure that there's no ambiguity, because that's part of your job. You want to have context and clarity at all times, and as a product manager, you need to be the one that actually always enforces that. And that's basically it. So this is what it really comes down to. It's your job to let the team know, the development team, what you find as the high priority items, what you want and hope to get accomplished, and it's up to them to let you know if that's actually possible. That's it. That's all it is. That's it. Now here's the catch. Even the smartest person on your team might not bring up the right information at the right time. It's your job as a product manager to elicit and prompt the right feedback from the development team. So how do you do this? Well, you regularly ask about risks, dependencies, and constraints. These sound like very corporate jargony words. I know, I get it. Now these are all sort of related concepts, and to be honest, they are also very overlapping concepts. For example, a constraint is basically always a dependency, and a dependency is basically always a risk. But by calling these things out individually, you're making sure that your developers have the right opportunity to speak up. Sometimes a question worded a certain way might not actually trigger the right response from a developer until you've worded it a little bit differently, and then that might be the light bulb that actually goes off in their head. And then they'll see the connection that you're trying to actually ask them for. So the first thing, risks. You can definitely just come out and ask your team, do you guys see any risks here? Which is totally a fine question and totally will get you some nice answers. But there is a better way to do it, and it's called a pre-mortem. We've all probably heard of a post-mortem, after someone sadly passes away. But a pre-mortem is trying to diagnose the problem before it actually happens. So you can kind of think about a pre-mortem as, if things were to go wrong, what would go wrong here? And you can actually ask that question exactly that way to your developers, and I promise you, it's a lot more effective than just saying, do you guys see any risks here? Because when you ask, do you see any risks here, your developers don't actually want to be the people that say, yeah, there's a whole bunch of risks. They might actually be super quiet. But if you actually give them permission to give you that information by saying, if this were to fail, why do you think it would fail? I promise you, they almost feel obligated to give you those answers. Now, the next one is dependencies. Again, it's one of those kind of fancy project management terms, but it's not that complicated. It just means, are there any work items that have to be done before the work item that we're trying to work on right now? If we were trying to schedule in a work item, Are there work items before that that have to get done in order for this work item to be delivered to the customer? Sometimes there is a specific sequential order that has to be done in a certain way, and it's up to you again as a product manager to make sure that the team can let you know that. And last up is constraints, which basically again is one of those fancy terms, but it just means limitations. Are there any limitations to do what we want to do here? Now, as you can see, risks, dependencies, and constraints are basically talking about the exact same things in different ways. But again, it's up to you as a product manager to use different ways of asking the same questions to the developers to give them all the opportunities in the world to raise their issues and concerns with you. And that's basically it. You just kind of rinse and repeat. Go through every item in the backlog from top to bottom. Just keep pulling items from the top, read them out loud, go through risks, dependencies, and constraints, and then if everybody's comfortable with it, you just schedule it into the current sprint. If for whatever reason you don't have a velocity right now to work with, do not worry. It's pretty straightforward here too. You want to ask the team what their conservative estimate is for the current sprint. Make sure you use the word conservative first. Let them go through the items with you and then say they can probably get through XYZ, they can't finish off this item or this item, whatever it is. That's the conservative estimate. Now the next question you want to follow up with is saying, if we were being really ambitious here, what else could we get through? The team might be a little bit quiet at first because they don't actually want to commit to anything, but again, make sure it's a safe space, make sure they're comfortable knowing that it's just an ambitious estimate. They'll eventually probably mention one or two more work items. Here's the key, just thank them for their information and do not include those work items into the current sprint. What you just did was you built goodwill with your team, you went with the conservative estimate, not the ambitious estimate, and everybody's on the same page that if they did get through the conservative items, they know what the actual other items and priorities are to get through if they need to. Congratulations, you're a product manager. It's all good. Now you just bought yourself about 1 week before the backlog refinement meeting. Now this is the next big meeting where you bring new work items to developers to kind of get their eyeballs on it and start getting their brain thinking about the new items that are coming down the pipeline. Here's what I recommend. As soon as possible, ask for an introduction to the customer success team. This is going to be your most important ally as a product manager, so you want to get in close with them as soon as possible. Now at first, your boss honestly might be a little bit confused why this is so important to you. Make sure that you're very clear what your intentions are here. You want to use the feedback from the customer success team as input to your product backlog, because the customer success team knows exactly what the customer wants. They also know what the customer is upset about with the product right now. They hear all the complaints, all the issues, all the concerns, and all the feature requests. So they are so invaluable to you as a product manager. And here's the crazy thing. Most product managers don't even talk to their CS teams. I don't understand it, but it's such a valuable resource and it's a great relationship to have with your team. Now here's an important thing with the CS team. They don't actually have to help you out because your bosses are different, your departments are different, but they want to help you out because it makes their jobs easier. And when the product team and the customer success team actually work together, everybody wins. But why exactly does this relationship work so well? Now this is a concept that I want to burn into your brain. It's one-to-one relationships, which is what the CS team deals with, and one-to-many relationships, which is what product managers deal with. Customer success operates on a one-to-one basis with all of their customers. They have a one-to-one relationship with a certain customer account, with a certain person within the companies. They know the history, the context, the politics, but only on a one-to-one basis. You, as the product manager, have to build a product that caters to the one-to-many. You are building a product that has to work for hundreds, maybe thousands of users. And that gap, that's where customer success can help you do your job better. Your job as product manager is to take those relationships, those one-to-one relationships that the CS team tells you about, and then integrate them into the product, roll them up into solutions that can actually work for the broader market. That's how good products get built. By taking the one-to-one relationships, sorting them in your brain, understanding the categories behind them, and then figuring out where you want to actually build solutions and features and functionality. Now, this is actually called a persona, and I'm sure you may have heard that term before as well. It's just a fancy term for an avatar or a specific type of person. Now, I personally don't actually say persona very often anymore. Some companies I've noticed don't actually use the term very often. it kind of got a little bit played out. People started giving these personas names and what their favorite weeknight food is and all that kind of stuff. It got a little bit crazy. But either way, the principle still applies here. And building this strong relationship with the customer success team is gonna make you so much better than most product managers at your company, I promise. Now, definitely after you become good friends with CS, you wanna do the exact same thing with sales and marketing. I just don't recommend you starting with sales and marketing because sales, number one, will definitely try to get you to commit to things that you don't actually know if you can do or deliver. And marketing will be looking to you to figure out what those personas are so they can actually market to them. And you're way too early in the game right now to actually give a nice, educated answer there. Now, your CS team probably gave you feedback in all kinds of ways. It could have been in a Google Sheet, it could have been in a bunch of emails forwarded to you, it could have been in a crazy amount of sticky notes, who knows? Now, it's up to you as a product manager to actually make sense of all this feedback. And to be honest with you, this is my favorite part of the job. Now, you want to group the feedback around logical buckets, and usually it's around pain points or use cases. And they kind of are the same thing, different sides of the same coin, so to speak. A pain point can be like, I have a toothache. Now, a use case is usually the workflow behind solving that pain point. So a workflow here could be going to the dentist and getting your tooth fixed. Everything happens from pain to solution, and it's part of your job as a product manager to figure out the best ways to optimize that solution. But again, the distinction between use case and pain point right now is not that important. The most important thing here is that you're grouping similar items together. What you really need to do is figure out which of these problems or pain points or use cases matter the most and should be prioritized with the developers. And the best way to do this is a combination of customer interviews, user research, and quantitative product analytics. And we'll get to all that fun stuff in a later video. The longer you're a product manager, like me, you're gonna find some mental shortcuts that actually save you a lot of time and also get you to the right answer. And to be honest, this next approach will get you about at least 50% of the way there. I want you to imagine a simple chart, a simple x-axis, well, y-axis, x-axis, whatever, and basically just have it where on one axis, you're gonna have pain. That's not your pain, that's your customer's pain. And it's really just how much frustration or effort your customer has to put in every time this situation takes place. Now, it's not usually like, pain, but it is frustrations or whatever discomfort or anger or annoyance your customer actually has to go through every time whatever the use case is or the pain point is that happens to them. That's what the pain is, so it's relative pain. The other axis, let's say it's this way, is frequency, or more simply, how often does this thing actually happen to the customer? Every day, every week, every year, it's always different. And that's where you come in as the product manager. It's your job to figure out where is the trade-off, where is that balance that you need to strike between a high pain, low frequency, high pain. Think about it like this, high pain, high frequency, it's a no-brainer, it's a high priority. Low pain, low frequency, it's not urgent, don't worry about it, put it lower in your backlog. And everything else lives in the middle, and it's your job as a product manager to sort through it. That's why you get paid the big bucks. Now, it isn't perfect, it's not obviously a perfect thing. You wanna obviously talk to customers, you wanna go into the analytics, of course, but simple always beats clever, and it also always beats being stuck in this analysis paralysis. You may hear this term more often as a product manager, analysis paralysis. It just basically means you're stuck in first gear and you can't figure out what the next step is. So simplify, simplify, simplify. Now, I'll take you one step deeper, and this is a really cool thing called the Kano Model. This is honestly one of my favorite models to use. I love it, I use it all the time. It's by a guy named Kano, I think, if you Google it. You're also gonna see a whole bunch of crazy arrows and charts and a lot of words going on here. If you go on his Wikipedia page, Big Daddy Kano over here, it's been rebranded a bunch of times. So in the spirit of repackaging the same old stuff and putting it out there for free this time, it's gonna do the same thing, and it's gonna be called Guest Experience Framework. Every single feature in a product or service can be categorized in one of three different ways. It can be a must-have feature, a linear improvement, or bells and whistles. Always think of it in these three categories. I'm sure you can categorize it different ways if you want to. You can add categories, take them away, change the way that you actually group things. But this is a very simple and very effective way to actually see and understand different features. So just think about it like this. You're gonna book a room at a hotel, right? Or a motel if you're down on your luck a little bit. But let's just say it's a hotel.
I'm glad you found the place. Do you have your boots on?
What are your must-haves at this hotel? Well, you're gonna expect to have a place to sleep.
comfy. You're gonna sink right into that, okay? And also, it's very similar with the pillow here. It has that thing that where if you go into it, it's like quicksand. You kind of just like nuzzle into it. So be careful. Once you hit your head on that pillow, you will fall asleep. So make sure you get your work done first. Also,
you're gonna expect to have a place to use the washroom, you know, shower, that kind of thing. And you're also gonna expect to have some sort of entertainment, a TV, some sort of thing to watch, you know, your movies or whatever it is. Your must-haves. You expect them every time you're gonna go to a hotel. If any of these things are missing, you're gonna be pissed off.
any questions? Oh, you know what? You have yourself full access to our free complimentary Wi-Fi service. So hold on to that, it's very important. Do you have Netflix?
Are you just telling me to go on Netflix on my phone with your Wi-Fi?
You bring the Netflix, we bring the Wi-Fi. It's all good, baby. You also have a self-defense bat if you need it, but don't worry, it's a very safe neighborhood.
Products work the exact same way. No matter what industry you're in, no matter what product you're trying to sell or build, it always will have certain must-haves that your customers will expect of you to put in it. And as you talk to more customers and talk to more CS folks, customer success folks on your team, the more you're gonna understand what the must-haves are in your product. Now here's a very important thing. Must-haves will actually change over time. It's kind of like the cost of living. What might have been nice to have a few years ago becomes a non-negotiable now. So you need to make sure you keep up with the market and understand what your must-haves are in your current product. Keep an eye on your customer expectations, keep an eye on the competition, keep an eye on market trends to make sure that you are well aware of what your must-haves have to be. Next up is linear improvements, your linear improvements. Now these are kind of like must-haves, but a little bit different. We're back in the hotel. Now, in the hotel, if you booked, for example, a queen size bed, and you walk in and they give you a king size bed.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
That is exactly an example of linear improvement. It's bigger, it's better, it's faster. It's like that Kanye West song. It's basically taking one attribute of your product feature and just expanding it. You know, your dishes can get cleaner in a faster amount of time. You know, in software, it could be bigger API rate limits. It could be you get more AI tokens, for example, more storage space. I don't know, all these kinds of things. That's linear improvement. It's always just taking a feature and expanding it out. Now, finally, we're into the bells and whistles. I think in the Kano model, it's called your delighters. I call them bells and whistles. That's my own kind of thing. Delighter just kind of sounds weird to me, but bells and whistles also kind of might sound weird as well. It doesn't matter. The whole point is your bells and whistles will get you ahead of the competitors. These are the wow factor. This is where your user experience is the best user experience, for example.
Hope you enjoy your stay with staff at the Understay.
Apple is a great example that has lots of bells and whistles against PCs. In software, a great user experience is a perfect example of bells and whistles. Yes, you can get the exact same workflow done in a clunky way, but if you have a nice, clean interface to do it, you're definitely gonna feel the difference. Some examples could be on Amazon. There's the one-click checkout. Yeah, it's to get your money faster, but either way, it's still a bells and whistle because it makes the workflow a lot simpler for you to actually check out. For example, on Netflix, your watch list, that's a bell and whistle, right? You don't need the watch list. It's not a must-have. It's not a linear improvement, but it definitely makes your workflow a lot easier. So always think about bells and whistles as things that make your workflow, or I should say your customer's workflow, a lot easier. Now, here's the key insight that I want to really drill home here. Over time, a bell and whistle might become a must-have. I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, so I want to make sure that's very clear to everybody. Over time, what used to be a bell and whistle, a wow factor, a little icing on top of the cake, for example, becomes a must-have feature in your product. So again, make sure you stay up to date with the trends, make sure you understand where your competitors are going, and make sure you can figure out exactly where you can actually compete. Okay, now we tie this all back to your sprints, your backlog refinement session, which is what's coming up next. Now you know what a bell and whistle is, what a must-have feature is, what a linear improvement is. You also know the frequency and pain of each feature, or I should say use case. Now let's tie it back together and bring this back to your sprints. Now this is going to be in your backlog refinement. You know what your customers' problems are, whether it's a pain point or a use case. You know the pain and frequency of that pain point or use case. and you kind of know where the solution can go. You know it can be a must-have feature, you know it can be a linear improvement, or it can be a bell and whistle to kind of get you over the competitors. You bring this information back to your developers in the backlog refinement session. And the backlog refinement session is really where you kind of take center stage and you let the team know, this is my thoughts, this is where I want things to head, this is where I think a good feature or solution or pain point that needs to be solved can be focused on. What does the team think about it? And this is also the meeting where you might hear about planning poker, which is, again, you know, one of those silly concepts that product managers and developers have to deal with. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Usually there's a free online planning poker, so just literally Google it. Just Google planning poker free tool, and you're gonna find a whole bunch of it. It's not as complicated as it sounds. Now again, the first time you're gonna go into it, you're gonna feel like an idiot. You're also gonna get worried, you don't understand what's going on. Don't overthink this. Now you bring a new item to the team, and in unison, you know, there's a big countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, flip. And they all kind of put in their own story point estimate for that work item. Usually it goes from 1, 3, 5, 8, 13. I think that's usually what it is. If you look at the Fibonacci sequence, it's not a Dan Brown book from the airport. That's what it's called, I think. The point of it is everybody in a group is trying to surface and understand where the differences in opinions are on how big the work item is. So if 5 people think that a work item is a 5 and 1 person thinks it's a 13, that's not a bad thing. That's your opportunity as a product manager to ask the person that put 13 why they think it's a 13. And sometimes they may actually bring to the group things that the other people weren't aware of or didn't consider. So it's a perfect opportunity for everybody to understand all the different technical considerations for each work item. And that's all that this really is. Backlog refinement is where your strategy meets the developer's technical reality. That's basically it. So congratulations, you're a product manager. You made it. You figured out the backlog. You understood all the planning meetings with the developers. You've made friends with the CS team, I hope. And you're also starting to use some really strong mental models to group and understand customer pain points, customer use cases, and figuring out where to actually solve these problems and how to solve the problems. So congratulations. I'll see you next time.